Well, thanks for coming. Thanks to KC Paracom for having me. It's my first time speaking. I originally wasn't planning to talk about anything. I was just fine behind the camera, interviewing all the other experiencers and researchers and all that. But contact for me has been ongoing, and they always keep pushing me and keep giving me signs. Go talk, go speak, go talk, you speak. We're giving you this for a reason. You have to go talk, you have to go speak. I'm like, why me? So I thought I did a good thing by just starting up ufohub. It's ufohub.net. And I said, well, I'm just gonna have all that you need to know in these videos. I don't have to push anything on anyone. People are interested in paranormal, supernatural, UFOs, you name it. There'll be videos to watch. And it's been going on since late 2013, but here we are today. So thanks for being here for my very first speech, I guess. Well, before I go on, I have a little message I just want to give to everyone. What I will be talking about questions a lot. Questions on maybe almost anything you might have held as a true belief. And it did that for me. And so I just would like to let you know that whatever I'm talking about, however convincing, with however much conviction that I do it, I just would like you to know that I'm not attacking you or your personal beliefs, because I've noticed just in my personal circles when people talk to me, anytime I bring out something, they'll question their religion or question the way they've been brought up, they kind of get defensive. So it's okay. You can still go on, have your beers after this and go watch your games and all that other stuff, and just think of this 20 years from now as this one crazy dude talking about something I didn't understand. So, well, with that being said, let's get into it. What I specifically wanted to talk about is the actual process of contact. And there's many things out there on the internet that you can go and watch and hear about, and so many races. They're from all these planets. This is what they eat. This is what their ships look like. Everything and anything you can possibly think of, the internet is saturated with it. But something I've noticed that didn't help me any, as much knowledge as I've gained, as much understanding that I've gained, none of it touched on what I was going through. And for me, it's been a process for since I was 15, I'm 33 years old now, and each year I've grown a lot more, understood a lot more, and sometimes it distanced me from my friends and family, but at the same time I gathered or gained new friends and family members that understood that at times they were going through the very same thing. So what I wanted to specifically talk about, and this can be applied for the contact in general, for the whole planet. And it's just something some few terms that I've coined myself. It's basically the 5 stages of contact, which is the consciousness touch. And I'll explain what it means later. I know it sounds weird. Then stage 2 would be first contact. Then you have channeling, and then stage 4, you'd have dreams. And then stage 5, which would be eventual physical contact. And I'll go into the details of why those steps are necessary. It's not something that they've come up with, but because of my experiences and generally what I've seen that's been going on with different contactees, I figured it's a process that people can relate to. I guess the side that we call our ego mind, because we always need steps and processes. We need 10 steps to a better you, 12-step program, 3 steps to finding a new job. You always like these 1, 2, 3 type steps. And so I figured, well, why not turn this into another step thing? Now, these things individually have existed for quite some time. You have channelers. They've been channeling since 16th, 15th century. I mean, there's been books about them, and they always went by different names. You have dreams, where people would talk about dreams and saying, oh, I dreamt about my dead grandmother or my dead father, and they've come to me and given me some messages, and that helped me out with something. And then you have first contact specifically, which would be people that would say, I was driving down the highway and I saw a ship fly by, or I saw an alien just appeared in front of me and they told me they're come in peace, and you have all these general stories that you'll get out there on the internet. And then what I specifically want to also start out with, which obviously is number one, is the consciousness touch. And what I mean by that, and I hope I don't freak anybody out, contact has already occurred. Contact has been going on for a few decades. For now, I'm still trying to ask him, trying to figure out when it exactly happened. But the way they describe is that our consciousness, the way we operate on this level, what we call our reality, is very ingrained in certain rules, very ingrained in certain procedures. For example, we have, for example, the stage, and you can touch just the podium, and it's wood. You have the chair, you can sit down on it, and you're very sure that that's a chair. I'm walking on the ground, there's a door, these walls are here, so I always have to go through the door, and so our minds always have these rules that we hold ourselves by. We follow these rules. We have to, if we want to go somewhere long distances, we have to use some kind of vehicle, whether it be a bike, a car, an airplane, you name it. So what happened was when their consciousness sort of met ours, we weren't quite ready for it. And you can see that in the movies. Movies you can kind of look at as the collective representation of a subconscious. And that initial change in that vibration between theirs and ours has been always met with hostility. Every alien movie we watch nowadays, it's always something about they're coming to attack, they're coming to take over, they want our resources, and all these movies are fun to watch, but it's actually a representation of how we collectively are, how we perceive that difference in that energy. So it's something threatening to us, we don't understand it, so we apply these symbols to it. And these symbols are like the movies. And even many times for contactees, it was something that I was going through myself before I kind of broke apart from this specific religion. I started growing up in a Muslim family. So they have their own beliefs about Allah and the demons and all these other things. And although I always questioned it and always thought that I was independently, thinking a bit independently for myself, and I knew exactly which way I want to go. I want to research this for myself. I don't want to just take someone else's word for it. It still affected me in a great deal. And what happened initially was when these different changes start occurring, when you just their physical presence, it could be somewhere from here to that door, it already starts to affect you. You start to almost go into this process of like you're dreaming. You would stop and say, is this really what's going on? You would all of a sudden question the things that you know for a fact are real and you can touch. Just within that proximity, you start to question your own reality. I was like, wait, am I still dreaming? Or am I, awake, or what just happened? So the closer and closer they get physically, we start to get all these things that come up from within us that we've been hiding individually and collectively from ourselves. And there are all those things you've heard before. We're all one, for example. The only true thing that exists out there is love. All these things we've always heard about, but we just hear it sounds great, and we'll leave it be. It's not something that we sit and ponder about and feel about it and say, how does this apply to me? We don't usually do that in our personal lives, or at least most people don't. And so the closer and closer they get to you, it's something that's been happening to me specifically. They would come to a point, and then they would stop. They'll come to a point and will stop. So I would always be left right there, right in that, right on that cusp between my reality and theirs, to where I would officially see something or officially make contact with something. And so then I would go to bed, and then I would then all of a sudden get all these visitations and all these different beings that would, appear and talk and discuss things, and things that I'm supposed to know about, I'm very well aware of. Things that I'm not supposed to know, it seems like that the ego, the Adnan that I am, would almost be kind of pushed aside, and a different version of me would come out and discuss things with them, and then it goes away, and I get to, again, interact with them. Now, in the beginning, I always thought that there was something very deceitful about it, that it was something, that it wasn't fair. I felt left behind, and as time progressed, I started to understand that I was not supposed to know certain information at this time, or at least the portion of me that's called Adnan, the one that thinks, he was born in Bosnia, grew up in Germany, now lives in the United States, has all these weird experiences, started a website about UFOs. That's all the side of the ego side of Adnan. There's a whole portion of me, and every single one of us has that, that is there. Is constantly talking to us, is constantly guiding us. It's the one that came to learn certain experiences in life. And these experiences could be as simple as being a poor man on the street in India and simply living out a life like that. Now, when we think about that, and from our point of view, that's a pretty messed up way to be. That's, why would anyone choose to be poor and live out an entire life in poverty? But when you understand it from a higher point of view, before you come here, you already, you understand what's going on. You understand how the game is going to be played. You understand who your parents are going to be. You understand the path you're going to take. And so it all looks nice and easy, looking at the plan from top. But then when you're within this site of this plane, you forget about that as part of that game. It's part of, you have this what's called the ego creation. You become, baby, you have, get your food, you learn how to walk, how to talk, learn a specific language that you have to learn. In your case, it would be English. In my case, Bosnian, then German, then English later on. And so you basically have all these things that are not so much tests. It's mainly experiences to be had. And I was always wondering about this, like, what's the point of these experiences? I was like, why? It seems almost kind of pointless. If you already know all that you need to know, and you already, why come down and kind of revert backwards? Well, the way I learned myself was, I came across, when it comes to the channeling specifically, came across Daryl Anka, and he channels Bashar. And that was very different at that time for me from what I was hearing about UFOs. Because initially I started out, I want to know about, how fast they fly, what kind of material they're made out of, do they, literally a thought that I had, do they use bolts or rivets, and so as time went on, I was constantly being pulled, speaking of your higher self, into look at the paranormal, look at the supernatural, look at the ethereal type stuff. I was like, well, no, I want UFOs. I want the hard stuff, give me the aliens, the cool looking ones, the ones with 2 heads and 4 legs, and all kinds of stuff. And it just kept diverting me back to that. So when I came across Bashar, it was really weird. This being that's called Bashar is claimed to be one of the 5 hybrid races, which basically is, you probably heard about all the jokes about anal probing and all that other stuff about the grace and the stuff that they generally, what we know them to do. And behind that is actually a program that's been going on for quite a while now. But what blew my mind is that program is not anything against our will. And this is the first time that I have to bring up that in case any of you had experiences, I'm only speaking from my point of view, so I'm not diminishing anyone's experience in this room if you've had them. We all make these different plans with these different beings because they're only appearing to be alien to us, but what they actually are, for lack of a better word, they're simply spirit. and they can have different forms. There's certain groups of spirits that get together, and I guess we call them grace. Another group of spirits, we'll call them the Pleiadians, and there's another group of spirits, we call themselves human. And so each one of these is having their own individual experiences in their own way. So what happened was that the different alien races, I'm trying to find a good way to put this to you guys. So when they come down to help, they would talk about these very spiritual type things, which threw me off. They would discuss things with people, and I'm talking about channeling specifically. They would make agreements with a human to basically do the channeling at the time when they're ready. And they would come through and discuss all these ideas. And I was always confused about, okay, well, we want contact. We want physical contact. Why are you talking to me about my relationship with my mother? It's like, I want contact. Why are you discussing my place at work? And it didn't initially make sense. But as I was listening more and more, I understood that by changing who we are, I don't mean to change to be someone else, but to become truly who we are, to become the full beings that we can be. It requires to look at all these aspects of our lives. So if we have some issues with certain friends, if we have some issues with co-workers, work environment, whatever it may be, it's important to work on those, to come to a understanding between each other, so that you can then learn the lesson that you need to learn. And by doing that, your vibration gets raised. And that's the key when it comes to contact with aliens, as we call them. Because the more you work on yourself and the more you work towards bettering your life and understanding that there's really no enemies out there. There's just other people that are trying to find the truth the same way you are. Some of them have gone far left, some have gone far right, but we are learning in our own separate ways. So by understanding that, raises your vibration. So when your vibration is raised, it makes it a lot easier now to deal with theirs, because we like our speaking linearly. They have to lower their vibration to meet up with ours. If we best want to interact with them, would be simply go to sleep and trust that the dreams and interactions you're having in them is an actual interaction you're having with other entities. But we don't look at dreams in the same way. Look at dreams as something as just a process of our brains. It's a process of what we've experienced the day before. And so that's not real. It's just all, in my head, and you wake up and you're like, all right, let's go about our day. But actually, there's a lot of contact and a lot of interactions going on in our dreams while we sleep during this period of contact. Because of the difference in vibration and because of where we are, they will constantly, through channeling, through contacting people that have made previous agreements to contact, to be contacted, interact with them. So, for example, they talk about these different races to give us this specific information. They've been already designed with a certain vibration to be able to meet with them, but majority of us are not ready. And that's what's so difficult to understand, because I absolutely love the subject. I do it regardless. The ufohub, I wanted to set it up in ways to where people can access what I do with ufohub for free, and thankfully to YouTube it's possible. And so having that platform basically would allow to just get other people to get their vibration raised. But I was constantly given a challenge, and they bring it up as called, I guess for lack of a better word, it's called a frequency. Going back to what I was trying to explain earlier, I would have a certain level of experiences. It would lead up to it, and then it would stop. I wouldn't actually go through the actual physical contact. Like, to give you an example, I was coming home from a UFO meeting actually in St. Louis, And I lived about an hour outside of St. Louis at that time. And so I've been begging for contact. I mean, I was like, come on, guys, I've been in this since I was 15. Just come on down. What's the big deal? Here's my hand. Good to meet you, you know? And so in my dreams, I would always have these visions of UFOs landing. And then I would wake up in the middle of the night and I was like, okay, well, all right, I get it. I realized not to judge it as just a dream. There was supposed to be some kind of message. So I was coming home from the meeting, and I lived, where I lived, it was pretty much a woodeny area. And I lived there for since 2010 till about 2015. And it was the perfect area for me to just do whatever the hell I wanted. It didn't matter, didn't have to worry about people being in the house or being distracted, doing whatever. I just had my own space to do whatever I needed to do to understand this, because I wanted to. It was this one little, I guess, the splinter in my mind that was, as they say in the Matrix, that was constantly itching, and I needed to scratch. And it gave me the chance to, instead of going crazy out there looking things up on the internet, I could actually research it and do it on my own. And so as I lived, we had a really bad storm that year. It was 2011, and it was February. So the house from my driveway was about an acre apart, and the snowstorm was really bad. So I parked the car on top, and the second I got out, I heard this buzzing. And I looked over and I saw a red light, and it just looked like a regular helicopter. So I was like, okay, that's how, helicopter coming this way, whoop-de-doo, nothing special. So it kept buzzing, and I took my boots, and I was slowly starting to walk. And when I reached the halfway point, there was an opening where I could see the sky clearly, and it was a full moon. And so I was standing there, and I really had to pee at that time. So I'm like, all right, let's go to the street, do what I got to do, and I'll go about my business. Well, when I turned around, this object now has come closer, and it's still just a red ball. Now it's buzzing a lot harder. And all of a sudden, I started to question. I was like, all right, well, this is sounding a bit different than a regular helicopter chop. It was coming closer, so I was just standing there, and I'm thinking, well, it could be a helicopter that's, probably from some kind of base going from some place to some place. And I bring that up specifically just to give you an example. The mind does everything and anything it can to give you something to define it. It always wants to be in control all the time. What is it? It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a this, it's constantly just trying to fit something that it can't understand into a box. And that's the reason why I bring up my little thought processes that I've been having. So as this object was getting closer, I still couldn't see the rest of the body. So if this was a helicopter, where's the rest of the body with all the bells and whistles on it? And the second I stopped and really tried to look at it, I said, okay, enough now. I need to know what this is. Another red object about 50 feet apart just appeared out of nowhere, and I just froze. And it wasn't that they were doing something to me, trying to control me or anything. It's just when their energy comes through, that's the physical effect it has on us. And at least for me specifically, that's what it did. And that's when I realized, this is not an effing helicopter. So here I was having the type of fear I can't describe to you. It's a chill down your spine, and you're just afraid. It's downright afraid. It doesn't matter how many movies you watched, how good of a researcher you are. You will simply you freeze and you look at it. And as it was coming closer and closer, I regained my control again, and for a split second, I wanted to run, but I was like, no, this is what you've been asking for. It's happening, just write it out. So I stood there, and I was so afraid, so I just closed my eyes. And as it was approaching, I could all of a sudden even, how you have when you close your eyes during the day and the sun is kind of peering through and it's all red. It was that kind of energy that was given off. I could still kind of see that through my eyes. And then I said, no, I really wanted to have this experience, and I opened it, and everything around me was almost like a water wave. The whole reality almost like disconnected, and it just kind of started waving. And I just said, okay, I'm going to stand here, and this object just went, two objects basically. They went like this, and then simultaneously went to the left, or my left. And that was it. So as they went away, all my fears went away. Everything was just fine, and I'm back to reality. I can touch stuff again. It's all real. We're good. So I went home, and I was really mad. I mean, it was, I don't know, I was really, imagine you have something that's right in front of you, that's something that you wanted for me at that time for at least, 10, 15 years, and I was afraid. And I was so mad at myself because like, why did this happen? And so that same night then, when I went to bed, I was about to go to sleep, and it's my experience that just to whatever happens to just trust it, especially at that state right before you fall asleep. And I just had this. They always speak in vibrations, so it's not words that you'll hear. It's more like a feeling, but that feeling will have an entire book of information just from one feeling alone. So that one feeling overcame me, and it was just one simple sentence. It's like, see, we tried and see what happened. And I just kind of said back, it's like, okay, I know, I understand, but I said, but come back next time, and so since then, they still they would just appear, they would certainly, like, I would walk, a light would appear, stop, and then just go away. And so and then I would feel the vibration again, and they'll just be like, it's just us. I'm like, okay, I'll just go about my business. Because I figured if there was supposed to be more, they would have stopped and would have actually tried to interact more. But before I get too much off track, I actually wanted to go back and discuss the beliefs, and which are a major point in UFOs, I would say, even when it comes to the paranormal, and even when it comes to cryptoids like Bigfoot or all the other creatures that we don't understand quite yet and try, is that all these different things, because they exist on that different level, we have to, we've kind of given ourselves a permission slip to be able to go crazy, go over to that other side, which most people don't understand or choose not to understand, and come back. And these excuses are generally psychedelics. And there's actually as I was discussing all these beliefs with myself, and I was looking at, okay, what do I really believe in? All my life, they've told me drugs are bad. It's like, okay, why are drugs bad? What is it about drugs specifically? I just, as a kid, you take the adult's word for it. They tell you something, you say, oh, okay, you're the adult, I trust you, and you kind of pick that up, and you live your whole life that way without ever even questioning it. And that's just one aspect of our lives that we do. So I was doing some research, and some of these things out there were just really harsh, like cocaine, and you have all this other stuff. I said, no, I wanted to have these experiences like the shamans do. What's out there, that would allow me to have an experience like a shamanic quest. So as I was looking through things, I just did some research about this one particular hallucinogen, and it's from South America. I hope you don't mind me saying it now, but you can talk to me later. I'll explain to you. I'll give you all the names that you would like. And they're known to have a very strong effect on the human body. And I was already warned ahead of time, just take one or two of these and they'll give you the desired, I guess they called it tripping at that time. And I said, okay, I'll call it that too. So my friend happened to have some of those, and he gave me 12. So I'm looking at these small things, and I'm like, how can 12 ever have, how can one or two of these have an effect? I better take it all, And sure enough, I did. And so what happened was, now I know that it was a lot, It was a lot for the body. If I were to go to the doctor, they would have said it would have been way too much to take. And the effects that it had on the body, long story short, was I died. But because of me being in the state that I am, knowing that everything I took, everything I did was for the sheer research and for my own knowingness, even though I did, obviously I came back. And I'm talking to you now. So what specifically happened was I took these, and so I thought, okay, nothing is going to happen. I'm just going to go to sleep. So I went to sleep, woke back up again, and I had this inherent knowingness that I've been here many times before at this state, and that was that my body will pretty soon stop to function. How I knew that I've been there before, I can't explain to you. It was just a simple knowingness that I've been there many, many times before, and just assuming that I've been there before, many of you have been there. I just happened to have that particular experience at that time. So all of a sudden, the images, as they say, 1,000 images per second would fly through my head, and I would think about all the things that I still want to do, all the things that I said that didn't mean. I wish I could just go back and, say something to those people, say I'm sorry, or I didn't mean it, or something. But all that really, truly just happens within that split second. But it's a barrage of emotions. So as I lay there, I just held on. I held on however much I could. I tried to go puke it out, drink as much water as I could, but it just would not let go. And I was fighting it. I'm like, I'm not going to die. I don't want to die. And all of a sudden, this feeling again, this was one of the very first times that I got it. It was just translated into, you're going to die, but you're not going to die. So it confused the hell out of me at that time, but it just kept saying, you're going to die, but you're not going to die. You're going to die, but you're not going to die. So I fought, and I held on to it, and then I could just feel the last bit of strength that I had finally fleet and go away. And I just took a breath out, and I was out. I could just, everything that was before, hidden, and that was kind of veiled from me, finally opened up. I understood things that I needed to understand. I saw things, and it just all made sense. But what was interesting is that during that whole time, and I'll start with the first one, I started to have a quest of experiences. And the very first time was my mom and dad. And I'm looking at them, and they're young. They're about 20 years old, both of them, and they're just standing there holding the hands, and they're glowing blue. And there was no question of why you're glowing blue or why is this. I just felt this love, and the love every child has for their parents. And I would just go to them. And in this life, it was a very hard life for me because, I'm not whining about it, just trying to give you an example of what I went through, which might be or might not be, above average, so to say. At least the older generation of Bosnians, they raise their children very physically. You mess up something, in America, you get told, you mess up. In Bosnia, you get the shit beat out of you. And so, all my life, I would just get that barrage of beatings regularly, or for whatever it is that I did. And I always just ask my parents, like, why can't you just talk to me? And it's like my dad would just say, this is so you become a better man. And here comes the belt buckle, here comes the fist, whatever it is. And because of that, I had, it creates a rift in the family. The more I grow up and the more, I become myself, we kind of distance ourselves. We'll still talk, but there's really, you can tell both sides try, but it's not really working. Well, during that experience, when I saw them, none of that was existing. I just went to them, and I remember I hugged my mom, and the second I did, all the memories came back where before I was born, I made an agreement with them to be the parents that they are. And I even begged them. I said, I need you to be these people. I need you to do what you do because your higher self, the one that you are, knows how far you need to be squeezed to become who you need to be. Knows what you need in your life to be who you are. And as horrible as it is on this level, it it's pre-planned on the higher level. And so as I was discussing this or talking to my mom about this, it almost became an instant act of forgiveness, and it's forgiving myself for hating on them, And that was the biggest, understanding that I could have ever gained, because everything they literally did, it was literally a begging to please be that way. Please do what I need you to do. And so they agreed to then be born a generation before me so that I can come in and have that experience that I did, so that that I could become who I am today. And what it is specifically is because I constantly had to resist them in some way, emotionally, physically, however that was, I had to resist them, made me stronger. Because I'm not speaking for everyone here, but who doesn't at one point or another remember, you can be 30 years old, you can be 40 years old. If your mother calls your name that one specific tone, you immediately go, oh, yes, mother, I'll be right there, And so we follow that, we have that control. Well, because I never had that respect for my parents growing up, it broke me away from that. That one control mechanism that is always present in all of our lives, all of a sudden was broken for me. So now it allowed me to stand on my own, speak or say what I need to say, speak to whomever I need to speak, however I need to speak to them, just because I broke that bond from them. And they were there to help me get there. So there was one aspect of that trip, if you will. So the next thing was, I questioned it for a while, why that particularly happened. The next scene that just shifts over, I find myself being in a city, and there's a whole bunch of, there's a bunch of guys standing around and we're talking and they're laughing about something. So I just came to the conversation. So I'm standing there too. I'm like, yeah, that's funny. That's pretty cool. But I have no idea what they're talking about. And so I just kind of went along. So soon after, I was very confused and disoriented. I was still trying to figure out how I got there while they're all speaking. And the next thing I know, one of the guys looks over and he sees this beautiful girl just walking across, and they're going, oh my God, look at that. And I'm just like, I looked over, and it's at that time, it was like the type. If the guys, if you understand, everyone has like a type of something, that's my type of girl, or in girl, that's my type of guy, or whichever. And so it's like, what I found most attractive was walking right across that road. So I stood there and I was just looking, and I was just in awe. I was like, oh my God, all of it is just all in one package, just walking right there. And so those were my thoughts at that time. The next thing I know, I'm looking at myself and all these other friends that I was standing with, and they're walking. They're standing there and I'm walking. And so I was like, why am I walking? So I look down and I see boobs and I feel feminine, whatever that means. I felt more female, and I was just trying to understand it. So when I understood, like, oh my God, I'm in a female body, I started to freak out. I was like, I want to get out. So as I was trying to get out of that, the scene ended, and that was it. Now, of course, before that, the previous experience, I had an explanation. Why, I've met my parents, they explained why, I understood what certain things happened, but this experience just ended, and there was no other explanation following it up. So, anyway, long story short, there were many more experiences that's just difficult to get into, and it's about 7 hours equal of experiences, because later on when I came back, kind of like my spirit, or whatever you want to call it, like kind of hit the body, and I went, took the next breath, and so I started laughing. I started laughing in this, uncontrollably, because it was this beautiful experience that, oh my God, I've been, most of us are afraid of death. I'm like, and I'm afraid of this? There's nothing to be afraid. You just simply go as spirit somewhere else, and you just leave a shell behind. There's no reason to fear whatsoever, And so as I was sitting there laughing, I just had, again, this feeling, and it just said to me, now that you know what you need to know, do you still want to play the game? And I said, yeah, I want to play the game. And the second I said that, I felt my soul kind of solidifying more into the body, and I just had to go to the bathroom and just puke everything out. And sorry for the graphics, but what it was, that poison, I was just shedding it all out, just all coming out, drinking as much as I could, and basically just to complete that journey from when I started until then. So that kind of gave me a little boost in this, I guess if you want to call it, the frequency range, because after that, things change. I would stand at the house where I was by myself at that time. Now I'm married and have one kid and another kid on the way, but I was by myself, so whatever could happen, was welcome to happen. So I would stand there and I would just see a shadow there, and it would just move away. And I would have experiences where I would sit there and there'd be something just, you can literally see it go, kind of fly over the wall like a dark ball, if you will. It'll just kind of fade over the wall and then go around it. And it was a specific action that you can see going around it, so that I guess it was, there was something real trying to go over, trying to get around an object, and not just part of my imagination. So I wondered, okay, what does this have to do with aliens? And then again, I was told, well, when you raise your vibration, when you work on yourself, when you change your belief system, all of a sudden now you open yourself up to all these other realities. And it becomes easier for them to simply interact with you, on whatever level you're ready. So for my time, at that time, it would just be a matter of shadows. Now, of course, before I understood that what I understand now, I was calling up my friends. I was like, hey, bring your cameras, bring your recorders, let's record this, let's set everything up, we can maybe capture this and so on. And the second, I had that thought, I just had this, like a laughter. And I don't know who was laughing, but it was almost kind of like, after all that we showed you, you still want to go the physical route. It's like we're trying to tell you it's spiritual, and you just keep wanting to use your cameras and your recorders and all that other stuff. So I kind of gave up on that idea, and I played around more with my belief system, And so this time, the experience that I've had 7 more experiences after that with 7 different hallucinogens. But each one of them took me to the same place. Now, each one was a different lesson to be learned, but I basically went to the same place every time. So what happened then, it was the last experience that I had, and it was actually at a party. So I was very hesitant about doing another trip because it's very hard on the body. It messes with me for weeks after, because I always like to solve a problem right then and there. So every time I have an experience, it takes 3-4 weeks out of my life just intently sitting there going like, what happened? Why did this happen? Okay, what does this mean? So they said, okay, time for another trip. So I said, okay, whatever. So sure enough, this one lady that was hosting a party, I wasn't even really expecting anything. I was that, innocent in some ways. And she just said, hey, would you like a cookie? I'm like, yeah, sure, I want some sweets, Well, it wasn't just a regular cookie. So what happened then, the second I took it, and I was just standing there, they said, okay, well, get ready for another trip, we're gonna go. And so I just, what do you mean another trip? I didn't take anything. And then the image of the cookie came to my mind. I was like, oh, man. So it's almost like I got tricked into this last experience. And it was very interesting, because what happened with that particular party, it was very much in line with the very first experience I told you about, is that as I was walking around, there was a lady that just showed up, and out of nowhere, she would, wherever I would walk, she would come by and stop. I would walk again, and she'll come and stop there. And I would turn around, and she's like, are you okay? I said, yes, I'm fine. And I would walk away, she'll come follow me back up again. And so I just, as I was walking around, she finally then cornered me and said, no, stop and talk to me. And I'm like, about what? And she says, stop and talk to me. And that's like, it hit me all. I was already, whatever frequency I needed to shift, I have already shifted. Most people generally on this level would not be aware of it. But this one frequency higher up is what I understood generally mediums connect to. So she was known as a psychic, a medium. She realized on what level I was, so she was talking to me because she knew what I was going through, and she kind of was trying to guide me. And so I said, yeah, I'm okay, and she's like, well, just making sure you're all right, whatever you're going through, you can just talk to me about it. I said, is it always like this? And she said, yes, generally it is. And so why I specifically asked that, I didn't know. It was almost like I had the question, I had the answer before I had the question. And what happened later is, as I walked through the house and was standing on a different level where there was more people gathered like that, everywhere I walked, people would stop, turn around, and say, see, we're playing this out for you. And then they would continue having a conversation like nothing happened. I would walk to another spot, and they would turn again and say, oh, we're orchestrating this for you. So you understand there's this difference in frequency. And so this whole night went on like that until it finally dissipated, and then I was told, okay, now it's done and over with. So long story short, it's been too long story short, it's very hard to step into this next level. Whether you are a UFO researcher or a paranormal investigator, a ghost hunter, whatever it is that you would like to label yourself as, it's very difficult to capture things, whether it be UFOs, which I've been trying with the camera, and then later understood why, is that if your frequency level it's not on a certain frequency, so to say, it will be difficult for you to see anything. Even the very equipment you're using, if you're not ready to see something, the equipment will not function the way you need it to function. So for it to capture what it is that you need to capture or would like to see. And but then here's the paradox, unless that is your path. Because there's some people that don't believe in any of this stuff and would be hit with aliens and ghosts and UFOs and whatever you want, and they'll say, I didn't ever ask for this, but in reality they did. So it's a very challenging subject because the level in which they operate, and the few times that I've had the experience myself, it's very difficult. You can almost think of it as this ego being a scuba diving mask in water. And it has a specific function, which is to get the body operating, to help you breathe automatically. You don't have to think, you blink, you walk, you just want to go over there, you go. You don't have to, not that much has to be done. All of it is done through your local processes in the body. But the original commands about things always come from your higher self. So to have the understanding that the original idea about anything always comes from the etheric side, which would be very difficult to prove physically and with instruments. So for example, if you go to get an MRI or you have your brain scanned, they would say, oh, this section of the brain controls this, that section of the brain controls this. Well, it's only the physical part that's now been activated to actually do the physical part, but the command came from a higher level. Now in my experience, there really was nothing religious about it. And the other part that would be very difficult to accept, and sorry to just drop the bomb on you like this, but we're all part of the one and the same thing. The thing that you want to call God, or whatever it is that you generally have grown up to believe in, it is basically every single thing and every single person that you can ever think of. So if you ever wonder, like, what is God doing right now? God is standing on the stage talking to himself while he's sitting there paying attention to himself. I hope I didn't lose you there. And it's very difficult to accept that because of this rigid reality that we live in. and by these channelings, by the dreams, and all these different things that are out there and that we know about, they try to slowly get our vibration to be raised just enough so where it can at least meet us halfway. And they do that quite often. I mean, there's still footage of weird things flying around, orbs, things that the flight control has captured, 10,000 miles an hour that just zooms around and they don't know what it is, hence a UFO. And that little reality, they're all things, this part of the second stage, which is meant to give us something to look forward to, something that gets us intrigued. Someone might go, what can fly 10,000 miles an hour? So it'll get you to the library to read the books and researches and go online and do all these other things. Each individual person has their little niche. They have their little things that they need to be pushed just the right way to go into the subject. But it's something that every single one of us has to work on. And it's very difficult for us to do that because we always just want to sit back and you want someone else like me to tell you about it. But, I have 15 years, behind me of all these individuals, because I didn't get into too much because we won't be able to make it, but it started with me since I was a child. And a lot of these different experiences that have been happening. So and I couldn't go to anyone else because you go to the Imam, which is the Islamic version of the priest, and they would just say, well, sometimes we can't understand the things God does. And that wasn't good enough for me. I was like, why not? It's like, why am I not good enough to be explained something? And so it would require us to question, the very fabric of what we hold to be reality. So, for example, specifically on the religious level, when I was younger and I was experiencing these different vibrations, every time I would try to hear something would be around, and I would sense, as people say, spirit. It would try to communicate with me, but it would be very deep and dark and ominous sounding, which would generally be construed as a demon or something like that. And that's what my brain translated as. So I immediately, as I was reading books, they say you have to assert your right and tell it what, who you are. And, and if you're Christian, it's in Jesus' names. If you're Muslim, it's in Allah's name. And if you're this, it's all these assertments and all these phrases that you can say to get all these spirits away. Well, 15 years later, I felt extremely silly because all these different happenings were simply different beings from different levels in the way that they are trying to communicate with ours. And the connection wasn't quite clear because of me. I didn't know what I was listening to, so it was freaking me out. So I immediately labeled it as demons, voices, whatever it is that you want to call it. And when you truly choose to change your belief system and simply allow it to come for what it is, you will all of a sudden understand it in different ways. Because what was happening at that time, it might as well have been, imagine you being underwater, somebody's above water trying to tell you something. And it would all be go, brr, brr, brr. It would not be coherent. You couldn't make any sense of it. And so that would be the best analogy that I could use to describe this. So, well, it's 9:00. I can take 2 quick questions if any of you have any. Otherwise, you guys can get dinner or whatever it is you got to do. Oh. Oh, I'm sorry, real quick. So at the table, I have a whole bunch of books there. If there's still any left, to offer free. So they're covering different subjects. So please help yourselves. Take however many you would like. And I don't want to take any with me home. But hopefully, if you understood a little bit of what I meant, this could be your first step to a whole new journey that you're about to experience.
I walked in like, I don't know, halfway through it. You had a near-death experience? Is that what happened?
Yes.
Okay. You said you did a lot of hallucinogens afterwards, correct?
Began with it and then did about 6 afterwards.
Okay, was it all the same one?
No, 6 specific
Ayahuasca,
different.
acid, different stuff? Or?
We can discuss the specifics later, but they were each individually different. Now, of course, the chemicals of it, they probably, sorry, I'm drawing a blank. What is that, the tryptamine? Maybe some of them might have had that element part of it, but if I were to tell you the name, you would recognize them as several separate substances.
Were you doing it for like experimental purposes?
Right. 'Cause I was by myself in the woods with no one else around, and I wanted to know, it's like, are drugs really bad? Or at least those things are always labeled drugs and always pushed together with all this other stuff. But yeah, and so if you have an experience of any kind, whether it be ghosts, UFOs, you name it, it's meant for you. It's meant for you to research, for you to go after, for you to do whatever it is that would come to mind and take that path. Because we've so many times we've trained that something happens to us, for example, an illness. It's too long to go into now, but it all initially starts with our unresolved emotional states. And if we don't resolve it, it creates itself as backache, cancer, headache, it's, all these different things. And again, here I'm just dropping bombs on you guys, so sorry about that. There's other things that you can look up regarding that. But when you do the work to personally search within yourself, to figure out what it is that you're doing or it's been happening to you and find a connection, you can literally heal whatever it is that you want to heal. And now, before I came here, I started getting really bad teeth problems. And I was wondering, like, what's wrong? All these years, I brush my teeth, I do all that I'm supposed to do. Why am I having that? And then sure enough, I got the next message, like, you're not speaking. I'm like, well, aren't the videos enough that I'm putting out there? It's like, no, you need to speak, And so finally, the second I said, okay, fine, I'm speaking, and Jason was calling to ask somebody about talking about UFOs and all this other stuff. I said, well, I have many people I can refer you to, but I have something I want to talk about. He's like, yeah, I'd love to have you. And the second that happened, done. And it's you have to try at least. If you truly want some answers, you have to try to go out there, no matter how crazy you will be, no matter how much your family will reject you, because you're living this life. No one else lives it for you. If you really think about this, whether you're standing there observing me or I'm standing here observing you, how do we know that we're not just part of each other's imagination? What if I'm just part of your imagination and all of this is just all within you and there's no one else here, really? You know what I mean? So if you have an experience, you're having it for a reason, go after it yourself. Instead of, no, it's okay to seek for some help or, for some advice, but to heavily rely on someone like me or someone else to constantly give you something, you will always just be fed this great information, but if you don't do anything with it, it's not going to help you. So thank you. I hope I didn't bore you too much. I really appreciate it. And tomorrow I will be at my table, probably between 1 and 2. Just sitting there with my wife and kids. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to stop by. Otherwise, I'll be somewhere else doing interviews with people. And so I hope to see you. Have a good night. And thanks for your time. Appreciate it.